Government did not move for a stay of the decision.
You are willing to subjugate the rights of individuals to satisfy your political ideology. Raped a 17-year-old girl. Was he guilty of that?
He pled guilty. The petitioner pled guilty to that crime as well.
She has an obligation to explain why she directly contradicted what she wrote in her report. She says in her report, the Bureau of Prisons' claimed penological interest is in protecting female prisoners from sexual violence and trauma.
It's a snapshot of how our justice system is being bent by politics. Protecting victims should always come first. But in this case, it didn't, and Cruz was right to hammer that point home. That's why we're here at the Outside Punch, to call out decisions like this and shine a light on how far the system has strayed from protecting the innocent. If you're tired of political agendas being put ahead of justice, stick with us. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it. We're going to keep holding the system accountable, one case at a time.
The government did not move for a stay of the decision.
Well, Judge Netburn, I want to continue on this line of questioning. In your court, what matters more, the rights of individuals or your political ideology?
I apply the law to the facts.
I asked a question, which matters more?
Well, my political ideology doesn't matter at all.
Okay, so I don't believe you. And I think this case demonstrates that you are willing to subjugate the rights of individuals to satisfy your political ideology. This case involves a male defendant who raped a 9-year-old boy. Was he guilty of that?
Yes, the petitioner pled guilty to that.
Okay, so he raped a 9-year-old boy. He also raped a 17-year-old girl. Was he guilty of that?
He pled guilty. The petitioner pled guilty to that crime as well.
So was he guilty?
I hope so, because she pled guilty to it.
He was a he when he did this.
That's correct.
And also criminal deviant conduct, which the record doesn't disclose what that was exactly. Then, after serving in prison, Mr. McLean was released for parole, but then violated the terms of parole by having internet and was sent back to prison. 1 year after being released again, he was convicted of having child pornography. Is that correct?
I'm unclear on exactly the time frame that you're at, but the petitioner was convicted of distributing child pornography.
Child pornography that was images of adults violently raping children.
Abhorrent conduct.
Okay.
For which there are real victims.
And this individual, 6'2", biologically a man. A minute ago you said that when this man decided that he was a she, you said this individual was, quote, I wrote it down, sober and entirely a female. That phrase struck me as remarkable. Did this individual have male genitalia?
I think what I said, or at least what
that is a verbatim quote, entirely a female.
Sorry, what I meant to say was hormonally a female.
Okay, but that's not entirely. Did this individual have male genitalia?
Yes.
So you took a 6'2" serial rapist, serial child rapist with male genitalia, and he said, you know, I'd like to be in a women's prison. And your answer was, that sounds great to me. Let me ask you something. The other women in that prison, do they have any rights?
Is that a question you're asking me?
Yes, the other women in that prison, do they have any rights?
Of course.
Do they have the right not to have a 6'2" man who is a repeat serial rapist put in as their cellmate?
Senator Cruz, I considered the facts presented to me, and I reached a decision based on what the law is.
I asked you a question. Do they have a right not to have a 6'2" man who is a serial rapist put in as their cellmate? Do those women have a right to that?
Every person who's incarcerated has the right to be safe in their space.
But you didn't think so. You didn't think so. And in fact, I'm going to give some quotes from your order because Senator Kennedy is right. This is not a judge's order. This is a political activist. By the way, the beginning of your order says, at birth, people are typically assigned a gender. I got to say that would astonish a lot of Americans. A lot of Americans think you go to the hospital, a baby is born, and congratulations, you have a little boy, a little girl. The assigned gender, I know you went to Brown, but it sounds like it's in a college faculty lounge with no bearing on reality. The Bureau of Prison argued what I'm saying right now, that if you put this person in a female prison, there will be a risk of sexual assault to the women. And you know what you did? You said you didn't care about the women. I'm going to quote what you wrote. You wrote, quote, "The Bureau of Prisons claim penological interest in protecting female prisoners from sexual violence and trauma. This interest is legitimate," that's kind of you to say, "but there are no signs that petitioner is at risk of reoffending. The record is devoid of evidence of incidents of violence or assault during petitioner's incarceration when she was the perpetrator, only the victim. A theoretical risk of sexual assault by the prisoner without more cannot support the BOP's position. No evidence, theoretical." Have you dealt, in what universe is someone who is a serial repeat child rapist not at a risk of reoffending?
Senator, as I do in every case.
I know you've been told to repeat the line, "I follow the law." I asked a question. In what universe is someone who is a serial repeat child rapist not at risk of reoffending?
Sir, I looked at the facts that were before me in this case. All of the evidence, including the statements of every warden who had supervised this petitioner.
You also wrote, "The BOP also posits that permitting petitioner to live among women will be traumatizing and possibly dangerous to them. This concern is overblown." I have to say, if I were the father of one of those women, and you decided that my daughter's cellmate was going to be a 6'2" man who over and over and over again committed violent sexual assault, I would say the entire justice system is absurd, and it is clear on your record your political ideology matters a heck of a lot more than the rights of those women that you endangered. I think you're a radical, and I think you have no business being a judge.
Judge Netburn, there was an opportunity during your exchange with Senator Cruz that you were attempting to offer a response relative to the conditions under which this petitioner was unsafe in the facilities in which she was being held. I'd like to offer you the opportunity to finish that response.
So the facts that were presented to me and what I relied on to make my decision were that the petitioner had engaged in no violence, no physical violence, no acts of sexual violence whatsoever while in custody. All three wardens who supervised the petitioner requested that she be transferred to a women's facility because of her serious medical needs. In addition, the Bureau of Prisons' longtime medical provider testified at a 2-day hearing in my courtroom and recommended that the petitioner be transferred because of her serious medical needs. And the last thing I'll say is that the Transgender Executive Council, which is the body that makes decisions on behalf of transgender transfer requests within the Bureau of Prisons, never said that the petitioner could not be transferred, and never, ever said that she couldn't be transferred because of any risk of violence. What the Transgender Executive Council repeatedly said in denying the request was simply that she needed to maintain her hormone levels. That was the repeated justification for the denial of transfer. But the petitioner had reached full female hormone levels before even being incarcerated. At the time, the district judge in Indiana who sentenced the petitioner requested that she be placed in a women's facility. Her hormones were entirely female at that point, and so the decision by the Transgender Executive Council to deny the transfer request based on this idea that it was only because her hormones needed to be consistent and stabilized, I found was a pretext, but they never once said she cannot be transferred because of violence. It was always based on this idea that her hormones had to be.
Thank you,
Madam
Judge
Chair.
Netburn. Senator
Madam
Padilla.
Chair, that's
Senator
directly
Padilla,
contrary to what your
Senator, you
report
all
said.
have
That is
had
directly
all.
contrary.
No, no,
We're
no,
gonna
no,
give
no,
an
no,
hour to
no, no, no.
We're gonna be
No,
You're
there
going to
is
follow up,
no
and that's
follow-up.
how it
No,
works.
there is not.
That is
There
exactly
is-
how it works.
Look,
we
If you
gonna be
follow
allowed
up,
to
you didn't get
ask
extra time,
questions?
and she just directly contradicted her own report. I'm just going to read her own words
This isn't
because
fair,
it's
Madam
exactly
Chair.
the opposite of what she said. Your own report.
Senators,
said, quote,
I gave both of you more time to finish your line
allowed
of
the witness to
questioning.
testify.
I allowed the witness
And
to
you jumped in
finish
and took
her.
another round.
I allowed
You
the
took
witness
another
to
round.
finish
You
her
opened the door.
response.
You
I
opened the
allowed
door
the
to this.
witness to finish
You're
her
abusing
response.
your status
That is
as chair.
Okay, I understand
That
that you're
is not-
scared of the
You are
facts.
abusing
I
your
have-
status
Chair.
as chair.
Senator
Madam Chair,
Padilla?
Madam
can't
Chair,
just open
Thank you,
up
Madam Chair.
testimony and then
she
not
has an
give us a
obligation to
chance
explain
cross-examine.
why she directly contradicted what she wrote in her report. She says in her report, the Bureau of Prisons' claimed penological interest is in protecting female prisoners from sexual violence and trauma. She just told you the Bureau of Prisons didn't say there was a concern about sexual violence and trauma. Those are directly contrary.
Welcome back to the Outside Punch. Before we get started, hit that like button and subscribe. Every subscription helps us push back against the madness we're watching unfold in our courts and government. So let's break this down. Senator Ted Cruz went after Judge Netburn over one of the most controversial decisions you'll hear about. At the heart of this case is a convicted offender with a long history of crimes. We're talking about violent acts against minors and possession of illegal material. The record is clear. This person pled guilty and served time. Here's the issue. After prison, this individual wanted to be transferred into a women's facility. Judge Netburn approved that request. Cruz asked the obvious question, what about the rights of the women already in that prison? Do they not deserve protection? Instead of a straight answer, the judge fell back on a prepared line about applying the law to the facts. But the facts show a dangerous history. The Bureau of Prisons itself warned that putting this person in a women's facility carried risks. Judge Netburn dismissed those concerns, saying there was no solid evidence the individual would reoffend. That's where the logic collapses. How can someone with a proven record of predatory behavior be treated as no risk? Cruz called her out, pointing to her own written order where she downplayed the potential harm to women inmates. He argued, and I agree, that this was not a legal decision rooted in protecting victims. It was political ideology dressed up as law. Judge Netburn tried to defend herself by citing wardens and medical experts who supported the transfer, and she argued that the prisoner had met certain medical requirements, but none of that changes the bottom line. Safety of vulnerable women was pushed aside. This is where we are today. Judges making rulings that put ideology over common sense, rulings that gamble with people's lives, and when confronted, they double down. Imagine being the parent of one of those women inmates. You'd have every right to feel outraged that the system chose to prioritize the demands of a violent offender over the safety of your daughter. This isn't just one bad call.